Hello and welcome to our pilot episode of the SoapFox Podcast. My name's Fox Forger, and I'm glad that you're joining us here tonight. This will be a weekly podcast occurring Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time to discuss issues that people are facing, especially young men, in regards to everything from building self-confidence in careers to dating and relationships. Over the years, I've encountered a number of young lads struggling to find their way in life. It's hard to transition into adulthood, and many still struggle even after attempting to make the leap. After some time, I decided maybe we could find a better way to reach some people. Many of them find themselves without a father figure, whether or not they had an actual father in the home. And without someone to look up to, many of them find their ways into some more unsavory role models on the internet, such as the manosphere. And while I'm no perfect role model myself, I'm here to offer a healthier alternative, or at least do my best to. One of the key milestones of becoming a man is when he stops saying, someone should do something, and starts saying, I'll do something. So today I'm going to do my best to do that, and use some of the hardships and struggles I've had to overcome to give some encouragement and hope to other young men. In that endeavor, I'm very grateful to have a small team of others who have also feel a drive and calling to uplift and edify our peers, both men and women. My hope is that as you'll get to know the others over the next few weeks. Today I'm joined by Michael, and remotely we have Travis. Michael, will you kick us off for today?
With our topic?
I would certainly hope so. Did you do your homework last night?
Yes. All right. So, in an age of modern sensibilities, traditional masculinity has been left behind. Now branded as toxic masculinity, men have become afraid to embody the role they were given at birth. Whatever the causes of this decline may be, and rest assured there are many, the fact stands that men have seemingly lost their way. Terms like failed to launch have become the new normal. Forget about fear of missing out. Now men are afraid to talk to a woman, let alone court or marry one. What can be done to change the course of our generation, or is it too little too late?
Well, it better not be too little too late, because if it is, then what are we doing here? We've got no hope left. So better start straightening out quickly. There's something that caught me. You're telling me that men are afraid to ask out a woman? Is that really? You're telling me you're afraid of a little girl?
Damn, you're gonna call me out right out of the gate. Okay.
Absolutely. What can we expect of men if we can't expect them to even talk of women?
Well, what incentive do I have to talk to women these days when all you get from pursuing women, if you do it you could be doing it the perfect way possible and you'd still get women call you creepy.
That's a good point. Well, let's leave women aside for just a moment. What have been the consequences of this drastic loss of courage and masculinity in young men? Like what we do live in a new era. It's weird and scary. I'm a boomer myself, as you all know. I'm a 30-year-old boomer. Don't look at me like that.
21-year-old minor. That's how they call them these days. Everything's shifted maybe like 10 years, 20 years. Everyone, the guys are finally moving out of the house at 30.
We have an extended childhood problem.
That's true.
And a competency crisis. So I understand that it takes a little bit longer for some people to get to certain milestones in life. But here's the thing. If we do not have men becoming men, we're going to run into an unsustainable situation. Everybody knows everyone wants to retire at some point. And, granny moves in with the family or gets taken care of in the nursing home, namely either by their savings or by their children. Mom and dad will take care of grandma and grandpa a little bit as they age. But of course, mom and dad are also taking care of children. We've heard of this before. It's usually called the sandwich generation, where you've got to take care of kids and grandparents at the same time on the same income and with the same number of hours in a day. Now, usually what will happen is a child will age up to the point where they can move out and start taking care of themselves. But as that starts stretching out to where people are living home in their 20s, mid-20s, even into their 30s, we do not have enough productive years to take care of people. If you are only able to take care of yourself from the age of 30 to 60, then that leaves everyone from age 0 to 30 and from 60 on up to death, whenever that is. I think 74 is the average life expectancy. all that rests on the shoulders of people from 30 to 60. That is less than half the population taking care of everyone else.
So just basically the same problem Japan has?
Kind of, yeah.
Aging population, low birth rates.
Yeah, we are. Well, we kind of try to make up for it by importing more people, but I mean that's still very very rough on things. It doesn't have the same family dynamic to it. We can't we can't basically try to import people to take care of our young and our elderly. That doesn't work well, and that's a whole different can of worms even. We do need to have people that are actually growing up and becoming adults. Whether it takes you till 22 or 25, we at least need to try and do what we can to push that back down. But it's scary to do so. What are some of the things that people fear that keeps them from taking that leap and setting out on their own? Or what ends up... What's holding us back?
I mean, unless... Travis, do you have any ideas, by the way, before I...
Go right ahead.
So I'm thinking of, even situations where you've recently kind of experienced a certain individual who might have, I don't know, lived a life devoid of failure because they didn't really have to do anything themselves, maybe. Some I'm thinking even people I know, maybe some people I'm related to, just they've been coddled all their lives, and they never learned how to live on their own. I literally got off the phone with a buddy of mine who is renting a room to somebody who's just about 30, and that individual has no life experiences, and he's almost 30. Doesn't even know how to use a washing machine.
Oh my!
And yet he's trying to, have a relationship with a girl and stuff, and maybe it's just like kind of a situation where both of them are so inept that they kind of like they're made for each other bit kind of thing. But it's genuinely shocking that he's gotten that far, but in every other way, he doesn't even know how to maintain his vehicle.
Good gracious!
My buddy is like, wait, it sounds like your transmission's going out, and. He's like,
no big deal, right?
Like,
just a transmission?
Yeah.
That's not an important part, is it?
So, it does seem pretty bad. I know in the circles that we've been around, especially, maybe not necessarily lately, but in the past, it just tends to be endemic. You see more people our age or just a little bit younger, and they're it's like their priorities are all backwards. And,
what are their priorities?
What are their priorities? Call of Duty. Like, what's the next video game on the horizon? That's all they can think about. Maybe, what...
I don't know if those are
It's a very hedonistic set of priorities.
I don't know if it's backwards so much as juvenile. Go ahead, Travis.
It's mostly about having fun or having the next thing to show off. Very materialistic.
It's very
hedonistic.
Short-sighted, because it's not pursuing your future goals. It's not pursuing a better future. Like, some people are just too satisfied living in a single room for the rest of their lives and not doing anything with it, not going out.
So I'm trying to think, how could you not have at least some initiative to take care of yourself if you want to have any of these things? I guess the goals are just low enough that they can get away with it. Speaking of, you're saying your friend doesn't even know how to do his own laundry? Is that
his mom has been doing it for him until he finally moved out.
Well, speaking of someone who's made for him, is that why he's dating his girl, to get her to do his laundry?
I haven't asked, but I don't think that's the main reason, the main priority. But I guess, maybe that has something to do with the rise of popularity of the mommy type girlfriend.
Oh my!
I know that's a topic you love, Fox.
Yes, that's one of my very favorites. Yes. Yes.
I think a large part of it is that a lot of people are afraid of failure. And the reason that people are afraid of failure is because of being coddled so much. They have never actually had the opportunity to fail. They've always been picked up when they have failed by their parents or people around them. Oh, it's okay. We'll just take care of this for you.
Exactly.
There's no incentive to get better. There's no incentive to actually learn any skills or anything like that. Because if you fail, well, the adult in the room just comes and cleans it up for you. What's the big deal?
Well, hold on. I mean, you're not suggesting that I should let my kids get hurt, are you?
Fox, you know how we teach
To an extent, they probably should actually experience physical pain. Obviously, life-threatening injuries and whatnot notwithstanding, from a few bumps and bruises and scrapes, not going to hurt them. It's probably good for them.
I think it does that magical thing that we dads like so much. Y'all know what it is? Say it with me. It builds character.
Builds character.
You're gonna say
Yeah, there we go. Of course you
wait,
did.
but Fox,
Uh-huh.
tell us how do you teach your kids how to fix things around the house like a broken oven? How do we do that?
Well, you pull out your phone.
Okay.
You call the handyman.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, perhaps this is why this is so endemic, is even the adults of today barely know how to take care of themselves. They've been living in such an easy time in life that they're completely dependent on whether it's the government or the contractor or anything. And it's only recently that we've hit such a crisis of competency that it's getting very difficult to try and rely on other people for all the things that we need in our life. Perhaps the most obvious way that this crisis of courage, this lack of courage, is hitting is the competency crisis that we see in the world. I mean, anybody who owns a home, I know that's a really lofty goal for a lot of people, but one of the biggest hurdles, even after you manage to do that, is trying to keep the whole thing repaired. You could try and bring a contractor in, they'll mess the job up, you'll end up having to pay them anyways, you'll get to pay a second person to come in and clean up the mess from the first one. You're bringing in somebody trusting that they can actually take care of it, and usually you have to watch it and know how to do their job just as well as them, just to make sure you don't get had. You know, speaking of perhaps a crisis of competency, I mean, America's best and brightest Secret Service agents. How well is that going for us these days? Very, very best law enforcement that we have to protect the most important people in the entire world. They're doing a great job these days, huh?
It's a very relevant and developing topic as we speak. Presently, I mean,
Sorry, was that rather targeted?
I don't know. There's a little bit to be said about maybe some certain initiatives that have been pushed as of late. What do they call that again?
Initiatives.
Something like DEI, maybe?
Well, I suppose rewarding things besides failure certainly are not going to encourage success.
Well,
that's for certain.
I don't know if you've noticed, but after that particular incident with the security, if you noticed at the RNC when Trump was introducing himself, there wasn't any more female security detail. It was all dudes.
I'm tracking. The only issue I see here is we didn't create those. Like they either were someplace else when they were needed, or I mean we can't snap our fingers like the Secret Service to solve a competency crisis. Maybe they did have some better folks that they could pull in when they decided that it was important. What can we do to solve this crisis? Perhaps maybe look to some of our leading figures. I mean, one of the most inspiring pictures of courage that I've seen in my entire lifetime was that exact same moment just a few days ago. We have someone that a lot of people looked up to as a very strong leader. Whether you like him as his policies or not, it's very difficult to argue that he is a very inspiring person, and he is very tough. I've heard a lot of people say that he's the most tough presidential candidate that we've had since Teddy Roosevelt. And I'm trying to think of anyone else that I know in my entire world that would literally take a bullet and then get up and then throw his fist in the air in defiance of death that he just avoided. That is some kind of courage that I think our young men can look up to. Again, you don't have to stand on his platform politically, but that kind of thing inspires. You saw the crowd that happened afterwards. You've heard the dialogue that took place afterwards. That kind of thing changes people. People are standing up for themselves a lot more just watching that demonstration.
It does feel like there's like a shift in the air, you know, especially when you're right, when that incident actually happened, we had the people in the crowd, you know, first there were screams and panic, but then after Trump basically did the fist bump, said fight, 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 and showed that he was still standing, that, you know, the crowds weren't running. They started cheering for him. Like that, the amount of inspiration that a single individual, a single man can actually bring, you know, like it's basically like if they were fighting in a battle, you know, your leader, you see him take a hit and then get back up. How inspiring is that to the rest of your troops? So
he carried the flag even after that.
Exactly. So
how many other situations have you seen where there's been some sort of shooting? What does the crowd always do in every other situation?
They just scatter.
Duck, cover, and hide.
Yeah,
duck cover. What happened in that one?
Nobody left, dude.
Yeah, they got up and they were cheering the entire time that he was still at the event. Yeah, he left afterwards, but one single man said no. Yes, it took a little bit of luck for him to make it through that. But, I mean, he could have just run right afterwards. There's no way you can convince me that he knew he was safe afterwards. That was pure defiance and heroism on display.
I think
it
changed. To do it too.
Yeah, I think he knew it. Oh, that's probably the reason that he's even running, is he thinks that somebody has to do it. There's not enough strong people left in our entire country for that.
And I think this brings us to the solution, at least partially.
What?
Is that think about the change that people are experiencing in the days following that event. Think about how the feeling has shifted. The atmosphere has changed. What happens if we have more examples of people standing up courageously against things and show people that it can be done? You do that, you encourage a ton of people to do the same thing. Suddenly you have your strong leadership kind of coming out of the woodwork.
I'm with you on that, but the problem is, why hasn't that happened already? Like, that's kind of a circular argument. You have to be brave so that people be brave. And that really, really, you're not wrong, but you run into
Instead of thinking of it as a circular thing, think of it as torch bearing. You have to pass it on to the next generation. That's not been happening. We have not had a proper pass-off in 2 generations.
Well, people have been so afraid to stick out. It's the same reason why, you know, men aren't pursuing women as much. It's because they're afraid of being labeled a creep or this or that. It's the social pressures that we've been subjected to all this time. And up until now, it's just been so okay to smear people or try and label them an ist or a phobe. Suddenly, like, especially with this particular thing, it's gone to the point where if somebody, finally, it's like the pendulum swinging on the opposite side. Somebody, how do we put it? The person who was actually killed, right? That at that event, the bystander, the dad who was trying to protect his family. That's so incredibly, not just like inspiring, but also really hard for normal people to just sit there and listen to some horrible, like, bad actor say something like, oh, he deserved to die because he was a Trump supporter. Like, that's why I'm saying the pendulum is swinging back, because now there's actual pushback. Normal people are like, no, that's not okay. I don't care who he was. Like, he was a good guy. He was a good person. And I'm not, you know, even just regular corporations are now making statements where they're like, yeah, we're not going, we can't support political violence like this. It doesn't matter who it is.
I'm tracking with you. I just have one major problem with this. I do not like the fact that this all requires someone else to be brave first. We cannot pray to God that we have a presidential candidate almost die to save our country. That is not an acceptable solution, not just because it's so incredibly unlikely to happen. This week's events were an absolute miracle, but it puts the entire onus on everyone else. And that is the most pathetic and unmasculine thing I can possibly imagine, is to wait for someone else to rescue us. That's what got us here in the first place. You know, I understand that everybody has their rough days. Everybody has their bad days, their sad days, even their therapy days. But I want to take a second and realize just how far the bar has fallen. Yes, today has some new challenges for it. There was no Twitter in 1942. That didn't exist. But you know what? We had other problems, and they were even more deadly than Twitter was at the time. Look at what President Trump just endured. He literally took a bullet for a country full of men that can't even take criticism. He's trying to get out of the hospital as fast as he can to run a country full of guys who can't even get out of therapy. Look, the important thing is that you're doing better today than you were yesterday. But don't lose track of how far off we are. This is completely unsustainable. And if we keep this up another decade, the children will be running the entire bloody country because people like him are going to be dead. Not just because of bullets, but because he's 75 years old. We can't do this. At some point, we have to take this into our own hands. You know what? Maybe you don't have to take a bullet to save your country. You might not even have to run for president. I understand that is a pretty exceptional task that man is up to. But you know something that you can do? You know something that everybody can aspire to do? The most basic thing that you can do to make a massive impact in the world? It's the same thing that was done by the guy that actually did take the bullet at that convention. That man was a firefighter, and he was a father. He raised 2 good daughters in his lifetime. I don't have to ask you guys, how hard is it to find a good girl out there? He made 2 of them out in the world today, thanks to him. Every single person can at least be an upstanding member of their community. They can brave a few social pressures. They can brave relationship drama. They can brave marriage, and they can have children. I understand you say it's hard, but you know what? It's been hard for every single generation. There's been no exception to that. If you can't run for president, then at the very least, I'm going to call out every single man and say that is the least duty that you can do. That might not be the calling of every single person to have a family. Maybe you will run for president. But if you're not running for president, it better darn be something else. You are not called to sit in your mom's basement. That much I will say absolutely for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so, in light of that, we should take advantage of this rebound where people are being encouraged by the one guy who had the guts to just stand there and take the bullet and keep fighting afterwards. This wave of courage that we're riding right now, we need to take that and turn that into our everyday lives.
Absolutely. And take the page of courage from that poor family in the back. I mean, that is just as much of an American hero as a president up on the stage, because that's what American families are made out of. That's what our communities are based on. They're the absolute pillars. The fact that our society isn't even collapsing around us is because people like him, not because of the orange man up on the stage. He's got his part too, but he's not holding the whole country together.
Yeah. I mean, it just... I don't know. How political are we getting on this particular thing? You know, we've gone pretty deep into it, but I don't want to go too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking like
we can say that political assassinations are bad. I'm pretty sure
I think that's a pretty.
That is a super stunning and brave thing that we're gonna say
that's
here.
Controversial, man.
Yeah, it is. Ironically, it is controversial. It's not.
Thankfully, I mean, look, even the staunch haters of Trump, a lot of them have come out and said, you know, we do not condone violence of this nature. Democracy has no room for this kind of behavior, even though they've been, you know, calling him Hitler and all these things for the longest time. But, you know, they got to at least pretend like it's a bridge too far. Some people haven't gotten the memo. I'm sure, you know, if you've been paying any kind of attention to certain individuals in the media and stuff who may have said something and then actually gotten repercussions for once. It's kind of nuts seeing it happen to people on the other side. So I do think it's kind of a tide is turning thing. So maybe this was the perfect time for you to be bringing this subject up, Fox. You know, some kind of just as miraculous as what happened with Trump managing to dodge that bullet. You know, it might just be in God's timing to start bringing this conversation up and reaching out to a bigger audience of individuals, men, you know, to try and help guide them, have these conversations. Maybe I think what you were aiming for is a more Christian worldview, right? Like, so that's kind of the basis for what we're doing here.
I'm with you guys on on taking advantage of the twists and turns that life has to offer. If God sends you a helicopter out of danger, go get on it. But we can't count on that every single time. What are some things that we can do to try to inspire young men? What are these? What? Let's go back to some of the bridges, the gaps that we need to bridge here. What, shy of a presidential assassination, can inspire people to just at least have the bare minimum of, I'm going to take care of myself, and even then, beyond that, take care of a few other people, whether it's a family or a community or otherwise.
What's going to drive them to, like, embetter themselves? Is that what you're asking?
Either what's going to drive them, or what are some of the pitfalls they're hitting that we can get past them. Like, scared of girls, I gotcha. That's probably a whole episode in itself. That's probably a whole 5 episodes in itself, to be honest.
Bro, that's kind of what the whole Passport Bros thing is about, is women, it's not working out for guys. And so they're looking other places to find women. So yeah, I gotta
admit, that's pretty brave.
That's a massive topic in and of itself. I'm also kind of thinking about the a bit of, there's just, it's the let them eat cake kind of thing. We have so much entertainment, we have so much stuff, and I think people have gotten so used to the commodities we have and the comforts that you have. You don't have to excel in life or get very far and still be comfortable. And I think too many people are accepting a low standard of comfort, a low standard of living, because they can maintain that comfort and just, live in a one-room apartment or in their mother's basement and just hang out playing video games, wait for the next thing to come out, and not think about their future. And I think that's kind of what we've all done as a generation, is we procrastinated our future and put it off to the point where it's catching up to us. It's not just, I know some people are putting that kind of argument against women because they waited too long, they pursued their careers, and now they want to settle down after, wasting their 20s or something like that. It's the same with men. I can't lie. It's the same with guys. What have you done to improve yourself and make yourself a man that women would want or value? So it's like, what's going to get them out of that comfort zone? What's going to get them to think, maybe it's any excuse. There's so many excuses why you could be like, oh, the economy is bad, I'm never going to make it anyway.
Let's cover a few of those excuses and see what we can do to try and bridge those.
I think there's a core issue here that we haven't addressed yet. And I think that a lot of it is that a lot of people, they don't actually have a vision. They don't have an idea of what's actually possible out there. A lot of people don't think that they can do this stuff. They don't think they'll ever get a house. They think they're going to have to rent forever. They think that the world is going to end in 5 years. They think that all of these sorts of things. We have a whole bunch of these, what I would call a terminating cliche, that basically is out there to destroy the dreams of young people. We have pretty much systematically destroyed the dreams of these people. They don't have any grand dreams. They don't have any grand aspirations that they want to work towards.
Black-pilled.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have any hope. I think that is the first thing that has to be addressed, because otherwise, why would they bother?
That's interesting. It's tying into that, perhaps something worth acknowledging or bring to people's attention if they're not already aware, is that the American dream has changed based on this. It used to be the idea that, anyone can get ahead, anyone can become a millionaire if you are clever and hardworking enough. And when I say that dream is dead, I don't necessarily mean that it's impossible to do so, even though it's more difficult today. What I mean is it's dead in the sense that is not what this generation wants anymore. So let's at least acknowledge that one of the problems we're working with is that most young people, and I'm talking millennials and younger, their dream is not to become wealthy. They actually do not care that much about material things, not in the way that you think that they do, or at least that you would expect if you grew up in the 80s or 90s. What people today really like is they like to not work. They like to not have things that they're accountable for. They would rather have a very low standard of living and not have to worry about rent. Now, obviously, they if you offer them a new iPhone, they're going to take it. It's not like they don't want things, but their priorities are different. They want less liability and more ease of life rather than they want more money and more luxury. And that's the biggest reason why.
It's like the
And of course, this
simplification.
drives us into a whole other topic, which we probably end up covering later. But this is probably the entire thing that is creating this malaise of meaninglessness.
Mm-hmm. So what do we do about this hopeless generation then? How do we? You say that they feel like they can't do things, but I almost feel like they don't want to. They're afraid to feel like they can't. You actually said something earlier that resonated a little bit, that people are afraid of failure. Honestly, I want to know what you think about this, because I think you may actually have this backwards. Because I've run into people that are afraid of failure, but they're not as common as people who have a different issue that's similar. Most people I see that have more of a psyche issue than anything else when it comes to trying to push out and do something a little bit bigger than themselves, or at least bigger than mom's basement. And that's that they're afraid of success. I know that seems crazy for a second. Who would be afraid of success? Who wouldn't want to, be rolling in it or whatever? Who wouldn't want to have great things come them everything that they try? But there's a reason for it, especially for people that are hopeless and downtrodden. The reason people are afraid of success is if you're a nobody, it's very, very comfy to remain in mediocrity, because when you are mediocre, or if you're a child, nobody really expects much of you. You go to the bathroom on your own, you get praise when you're 4 years old. Like, that's the standard. And you know what? That's really comfortable. And people tend to stay into that into their adults, not necessarily quite that low, but the same idea of,
You did it, Joe. You answered all the questions.
yeah.
You know, Yeah. Down to our own president right now with those, what do they call that? Consolation prize or
Participation
participation
trophies.
award.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if you end up succeeding at things, you gain more skills, you gain more talents, you gain more responsibilities. Then guess what happens? People start expecting it every time. So why would you go out and prove that I can accomplish this thing on my own when, as long as you never do it, someone else takes care of it for you?
Fear of expectation. So
That's right.
somebody else will do it. Somebody else will, help
To him whom much is given, much is
push.
expected.
Somebody else will lead the charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which is the whole problem with the whole let's take advantage of the orange man situation. So we go right back to that. Someone else will take a bullet to the head to inspire the world. That's so brave of us. Yeah, that's if you don't have any courage by the time that's actually happening, I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's not going to change crap. Like, it might make people put on a brave face for a second, but if y'all are that much of a coward, nobody dying in your place is going to actually inspire you to do hardly anything, because you're going to be shivering in the corner.
I gotta say that there is so much power. Look, it's the whole reason. Like, let's get biblical. It's the entire reason why our Christianity is based off of one single man, Jesus, who was able to take the sin of the world on his own back and cover all the sins of many of humanity. We have not, like we're gonna save the world, but a single courageous individual like what we've seen has the ability to change the course of history. They have the ability to change hearts. And so you have, yes, we all should do more to, be that, but we get hard carried in history by heroes of history, by certain individuals that have, gone down in the history books in time. So
it's a constant refrain. I could give you many examples,
yes,
and I'll just
I
rattle off a couple
Travis
here,
would back me
just
up
for
on this
fun.
one.
Yeah.
You've got George Washington. You've got William Wilberforce. You've got
Johnson.
several of You've got several of these. You've got several of these people, the people that are considered war heroes most of the time.
Yeah.
You have all these battles, the hopeless battles, the Alamo, this kind of a thing. We still remember those people. They didn't even win, and we remember them because of how brave they were.
I guess you're right. My problem is by putting that. I guess, yes, I acknowledge that this is a thing, it exists. But this isn't a solution, because if we just say, well, the way that history works is someone else rises up, no one else is going to do it, because everybody's going to be like, well, you know what, I got mine. And I'll go ahead and say it out loud. We live in one of the most consumerist countries in the entire bloody world. There is nowhere you're less likely to find men willing to stick their neck out than here, I'd say. At least not in your typical American culture. Thankfully, we're enough of a melting pot that you've got sects of people who are very courageous based on other beliefs or religious worldviews. But that sort of idea is very foreign to the I've got mine, capitalist mindset. It's one of the weaknesses of it is, selfishness is essentially rewarded. How can we try and counter that? How can we try and tell men to quit saying somebody should do something and start saying, you know what, I'm going to do something? Because the fewer men that step up, the more people are literally going to take bullets. And it's going to make it even harder on the men that are on the front lines. I can tell you this from experience because I have been a flag carrier in a number of things, and I've gotten absolutely massacred for it. It's been extremely unpleasant. And sometimes it's been worthwhile because I have been able to inspire some other young men to follow behind me and lead with me. I took some hits and dusted myself off. They took some, but they took fewer. And then eventually we had a critical mass to at least carry out the task at hand. Other times I haven't, though, and I've been unsuccessful to inspire enough people, and I've just been defeated because I can't do it on my own.
So one thing I will say,
more to finally take things into their own hands as we ought to.
here's an interesting concept that might flip this on its head for us. What if we think of these times of prosperity that we think of as the times when people are stepping up and are doing the things that they are supposed to be doing, by and large.
Okay.
And the times when things start going south is when people aren't. So in that model, if you want to have
weak men, I'm with you.
Exactly. If you want to have this type of experience, if you want your, sometimes not even your, if you want your and future generations to be better off, what you have to do is you have to step up in the moment. Otherwise, everything starts going downhill, and the only thing that typically will end up bailing us out is somebody who decides, you know what? I am going to stand even if it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
We actually, it's not so much that we have had, where we don't always have, it's not where we get to the point where it's not that we get to the point where only one person stands up and that's the story. It's not every time we have one person who stands up, fixes everything, and then it's good for a while.
Well,
it's not actually that.
I can tell you it's not, because for every single one of those George Washingtons who becomes a hero, there's 100 other people like him that tried, and they died and failed because they didn't have enough help. We only hear about the success stories. It definitely takes more than just the one dude.
Right. But sometimes it takes the one dude to get everything rolling. And the ideal is, of course, that we don't get to that point.
And
what I would consider these are the sorts of stories that we hear about, and what they really are is it is basically an act of mercy from God to raise someone up to rescue civilization and keep it going.
Fox, before you start and respond to that, you're kind of wrong, because it's not, people who died and trying and stuff. Those are the people who are like martyrs. What do martyrs do? Those are the people who really inspire.
Well, yes, but not everyone becomes a martyr just because they die for a cause. Most of them die in unmarked graves.
Okay, but I'm just saying that it's not just the people who are victorious.
I would count martyrdom as being victorious if the cause is victorious.
Okay.
in the long run, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Sometimes
that's
you
right.
don't actually see it for another generation or two even afterwards.
Yes,
But the thing is that those still matter. They still made a difference.
they do. Yes, I understand that. I'm talking about all the ones that were not able to make a difference because somebody saw someone get knocked off and they're like, nope, never mind. I'm going back to what I was doing.
Well, there's also the idea of different personal motivations. Some people are doing it for a cause to better other people and their people or humanity, whatever you want to call it. Then there's just people who have had enough and they're just sick of it and they're just going to stand up because they're so tired of being pressed and put under somebody's boot or foot. They weren't necessarily doing it for some grandiose cause, but because they finally stuck their neck out and fought back, it inspired people anyway, right? It's like the accidental hero. He didn't mean to be, but because he was at his wit's end and finally pushed back, that it all worked out.
But I think what this kind of ends up coming back to is that idea of vision and the idea of values. Without
values
both of
especially.
those, we are going to continually find ourselves falling into this same pattern where we go downhill and we go downhill, and praise God, somebody stands up and inspires a whole new group of people to fix it.
So what's this vision and values that we need to instill in people, and how do we do it? And how does this tie into? I think we still got a little problem of the matter of people feeling disempowered, like they can't make a difference, or convincing themselves that they can't make a difference. I'll bet you that's actually even more common.
That's probably the majority of it, yes.
Mm-hmm. That's the cowardice right there, is I don't want to believe I can make a difference. I don't want to believe I can succeed, because if I can succeed and people know it, then they're going to expect me to be somebody who stands up and does something and faces a danger to go along with it.
I do feel like that has been ingrained into us by just virtue of our own government doesn't want to raise people who are willing to push back. They want complacency. They want people who are content being, not shakers and movers.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I don't want to put all blame on us as a generation, like as if we were, like the entire cause. I think it has to do with poor parenting, coddling, right? But and then economic, you can all kinds of different reasons that we get ourselves into this kind of mess. But one thing I do want to say is the values and convictions thing is, I think, paramount. I don't even know if you have to even feel like you're making a difference or making change. Like, what is the, now that I think about it, isn't it usually like when revolutions happen or when things get overthrown, it's like it only takes a certain percentage of the population to do it?
The 3%?
Like, it really isn't that much.
It's a very small
Convince
percentage.
people that it doesn't take much to make change and make waves. And so maybe that'll help grow courage across the board. And I think we're already moving in that direction because of the recent things that have happened. So I'm actually more hopeful than I was a few weeks ago. I'm not going to lie.
I'm still a little skeptical, though, because you're not wrong. But let me give you a little anecdote from my leadership. It's very easy to get people to want to be a part of something bigger. It's very difficult to get people to give more than the bare minimum, because most people are very, very content once they feel like, I'm helping. I contributed 50 cents. I sacrificed 15 minutes of my time. I'm changing the world. I did my good deed for today. Now I can go home. Giving people to actually do their best is very difficult by comparison.
There's a very large difference between somebody who wants to participate in something larger than themselves and somebody who is committed to the cause and wants to see it through.
Very much so. Also, I just want to draw a distinction between people who truly believe they cannot make a difference and people who do not wish to believe that they cannot make a difference. And I think that's going to come up here because we're talking about how do we give people a vision so that they can have a motivation to actually drive something, to drive a cause to its end, to have that bravery. And I hear a lot of people tell me you've got to give this vision to people, show them that they can make a difference. And I'm here to tell you that in most cases, I can show them they can make a difference, and they take it like cough syrup. You have to force it down their throat because they do not want to believe they can make a difference. That terrifies them. It's like it's like the kid in the doctor's office about to get a shot. Like, you gotta pin him down. Like, no, you've gotta take this, and they don't want to.
Or the fox in the doctor's office trying to get blood drawn. Man, he's so.
Oh gosh! Wow, you're gonna call me out
That's
on
what
that?
You get. You started it.
I started
You hit me
it
right out of the beginning. Right out of the gate. It was your modus operandum to trigger me, bro. You got me.
Oh, and I won't even have a chance to defend myself
Yeah,
without getting off
sorry.
topic. Yeah, I've got a phobia of needles. Fine.
Got him.
All right.
GG no re.
One of the
Yes.
things, though, if I can at least attempt to get us back on track for a little bit here, one of the things that I think is interesting about that is that when you've got somebody who is afraid of that ability to be successful, I think that the reason that a lot of people convince themselves that they are incapable, even though they perfectly are, is because they are afraid of possibly a couple different things. One of them is not living up to it. Sometimes it is not even the fear of other people judging them for it. It is the fear of themselves judging them for it. They have to live with themselves. And so if they were to go in there and try it and fail horribly, some people don't think they could handle that.
Yeah, you can't live with yourself if you realize that you tried and failed. I understand that. That's kind of like the imposter syndrome type stuff. Like, if you're an artist, well, I'm not going to try my very hardest because what if I never would have lived up to the artist I see in my head, myself being?
How do we snap people out of that? I mean, I'm a tough love person. My first thing I would think of is just go up to somebody, bop them on the head, and go, "You're literally saying never try, never fail." Do you realize how stupid that is? That is unbecoming of a grown man.
That just sounds like a generational curse on us all. Never try, never fail.
Yeah,
I'm not
so
gonna lie. That's going to be the name of the podcast this episode. Never try, never fail.
yeah, that's depressing.
That's gonna
Yeah,
be the name of this episode.
that kind of does seem to be the generational theme. Never try, never fail, never succeed, never have any expectations of you. Live comfortably in mediocrity forever. And just assume the children that you're never going to have will take care of you in the nursing home somehow.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can establish one thing, though, which is an interesting piece that people do not think about.
Mm-hmm.
At the very beginning of humanity, there was no wealth. There was no money. That did not exist. We have built all of this up over the course of human history. And if we do not continue to maintain it, it all goes away. The standards go down. Everything doesn't stay in mediocrity. Everything goes until we're back into the Stone Ages.
Yeah.
So that's the part where
So we're going to scare them?
Well, you're not going to have to if things get bad enough.
Well, let's try and avoid the total collapse of civilization as a possibility.
Happen, they're gonna wake up or die. Like.
It is the problem is the way we have this set up. That is a very real possibility. We have a previous generation who knows how to do a whole bunch of these things. We have the next generation who knows less. And we have even the next generation, which is our generation, who knows even less about this. And we have been seeing a complete failure to transfer knowledge, for whatever reason, from one generation to the next, for 2 generations now, at least.
Mm-hmm.
That goes hand in hand with the conventions of technology becoming easier to use. We've had this conversation before, Travis, where things get more consumer friendly, so you don't have to put much thought into your products. You get the Apple product, you install the Apple thing, and then you play the Apple game. It's very low
There's a
IQ
flip
brain,
side to that.
Oops, did I say
There's
that?
a flip side to that people don't talk about.
Yeah, it's the other side.
When you make something too easy, it requires less of people who are using the product. It requires more of the people who are building the product, and it makes it harder for people to to figure out how to build the same thing later on, because the pool of people who will possibly know how to do that will shrink because less people will be interested in it.
Can we apply
Becomes
this?
trivialized.
Mm-hmm. Can we apply this less to specialized skills? I know that's definitely a problem, but our trouble, I think our root trouble, that might have been an issue for the last generation. We've gone a step further back towards the Stone Ages, where we not only didn't transfer skills, we did not transfer character. Like, is there a way that we can apply that less to engineering skills, more to the ability to have a spine, or the fortitude to do what's right when you need to, even if there's a bit of a cost to you? Because I don't think that we can even get there until we have that. Like you said, we
That
need
goes
a vision
back to
first.
something that I was talking about earlier
Mhm.
with values, instilling values and vision.
So how do we
You
do
have
that
to
first,
instill
then?
values in your kids. And the thing is, one of the ways you have to instill values is you have to challenge them. Building character it's a very real thing. I know a lot of people make fun of it, but it is a very real
I
thing.
know it's real.
And also, the other piece of it is the values that you have will actually drive a lot of this too. If your value system is such that, well, the only thing that's worthwhile is money or material things, and the goal of life is to get as much stuff as you possibly can, that has a very different set of outcomes than a mindset which is much more Christian mindset, where we are aiming to take care of people, take care of the widows and the orphans, provide for people who are less fortunate for us, to go out there and do the work because that's the requirement for eating. The survival of basically, if you're going to look at it from Christian perspective, your very survival is actually dependent on you doing work. You have to put in effort, or you're not supposed to be eating.
I understand that. Now, tell me, we got about 5 more minutes. Let's try and find as many solutions to these issues as we can here. I'm tracking with you here. Tell me, how do I instill that same value or that same drive into a young adult who's maybe about 20 and not necessarily a believer? How do we teach him that not only can you, but should you go out, take a chance, be brave, take care of yourself, take a few risks, and be the man that you were born to be?
Well,
I will say that that's actually a little bit harder.
Yeah, I
The
know.
general idea for it, though, and this works for kids as well, is you need to give them challenges that they can accomplish. But even before that, you need to give them a reason for why they should be doing it.
they need a role model.
Mm-hmm.
Or
And that's the other thing is when you give them those, if you're not living it out, they will notice it and they will call you out on it or just ignore you.
Maybe that's actually a good baseline. 'Cause remember, we're talking about not everyone can be a presidential candidate taking a bullet, but every single person can be a role model, even if it's not to a biological family. That is completely within the capabilities. But in order to do that, you've got to take care of yourself first.
Well, that's the kind of the baseline for a father is being a role model, or at least you'd hope.
Mhm.
So there's that. But you don't
Yeah.
have to be a father to be a role model. That's
Yeah.
another thing.
You can start doing those things before you even find a wife, because we know that's hard. I know better than anyone how hard that is. It's so maybe that's the first thing we should encourage on a larger scale is look. Because it's true. I look around, I still need a role model. Every man needs a role model. There's no point in your life where you outgrow a need to have somebody that you can glean from and use to help better yourself. And it's really difficult to find them. Where do most people find them today? Their parents, right? No, they don't. They find them on the internet. They can hardly even find them in their churches because there's only one pastor for 300 to 10,000 people, depending on your church.
And there's a very
There's not
specific
enough
role
of
that this
them.
person needs to play. This person
Mhm.
is not just a role model oftentimes. You actually need a mentor, somebody who's going to be
Yeah.
there for
Mhm.
you specifically, one-on-one, tell you about your situation, give you
Mhm.
advice about your situation, what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, the benefit of it, this is akin to discipleship. It's basically the same thing.
It is. It's
We
secular
have
discipleship.
we have a lack of people who are discipling others. That's another thing that we need to address. I think you'll find that those will go hand in hand for solving issues, at least on the men's side.
I think that might be a pretty reasonable solution. Even if we can't get everyone to be a presidential candidate, I'd like to think I can ask all of you guys out there at least get to the point where you can be a role model for other people, or better yet, a disciple. Don't quit trying to be the YouTube star. I know I'm being a hypocrite here, but I promise I'm out there in the real life also. That's why I migrated up to this. But
before anyone says anything, it wasn't his idea, guys.
that's true. I
wasn't
resisted
his
for a
idea.
good while.
He was dragged into it. I can
Yep.
confirm this.
Very much. And it doesn't have to be strictly one-to-one. I mean, one dad can take care of a bunch of kids, but we need a second tier below the influencers. We don't need more influencers. We've got enough of them, and most of them suck to begin with.
You just don't like that word, but an influencer is basically a role model.
You're a bad influence. You know that?
I'm a bad influencer.
Yes, I know
I
they're
mean,
a
if
role
you don't
model,
have anyone
but-
following you, by definition, you're a bad
We'll see.
influencer.
Oh, ouch! I feel
you're not
called
getting your
out.
job, man. You're not getting your job, bad influencer.
Mm-hmm.
That's different. Wow, bad influence, a bad influencer.
Mhm.
Those are totally different things, but
Yeah.
they basically, an influencer, kids follow what they see, what they think is cool.
I'll tell you, it's at least a lot easier to be a bad influence as an influencer because you don't have that direct connection, and fame does things to people. Somehow it messes you up in the head. So yeah, we don't need more people that are big and important. And in fact, to an extent, it's almost braver to do things in person these days with how much people struggle with that.
Well, you don't get any kind of social
No.
acknowledgement for that.
No, I don't get I don't get 500 likes on my
Yeah.
Instagram every single time a kid asks me, should I ask this girl out
Yeah,
or
when
something?
you're talking
how do
to
I
somebody-
talk to this girl?
Yeah, and you're helping somebody out in the DMs. That never gets, you never get credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
But what it does give you is it makes your life meaningful.
It sure does.
It gives you that sense of meaning. It's an actual sense. It
You've
gives you
made-
that feeling, and then you feel like your life is worthwhile. Things will feel better for you if you go out and do this.
You made a difference.
Yep. And you know what else? That's also really good training for future fatherhood. If you're one of those people that might be a bit afraid of finding a woman these days or having kids, well, guess what? That's some good training for you at least. You're going to need those skills to be able to do that. So get started today, and you'll actually start making a difference even before you get that far in your life.
We're at the top of the hour.
Sounds about right. Do you have one more thing for us that was really important?
Important? No.
No? What is it?
Are we talking about a side?
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it important.
It's very important.
It's very important.
People sat through 55 minutes of us yapping to get to this point.
They didn't know this was coming.
They
The bonus
didn't?
topic.
That's right, they didn't.
The irrelevant bonus topic that we decided to throw in.
All right. Bonus topic, what is it? I'll take bonus topics for 300, Alex.
It's so random coming off of now that I feel it, now that we're here, it's so random pivoting into this. you know?
Yeah? Spit it out,
Okay,
lad.
okay.
We're talking about bravery here. Come on. What is it?
Oh my god. Are avocados redeemable?
Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? Hold on. Avocado. We're talking about fruits, right?
We're talking about the main export. I'm kidding. From California.
The main
The
export.
California avocado. I'm kidding, guys, but the California avocado has California made avocados irredeemable to the average Joe. Guilt by association. You don't want anything to do with them because of the stereotypes.
Well, I mean, if you're
That's the question.
if you're asking me if we
I'm
could.
not asking you actually. I'm asking another Californian, Travis.
Oh yeah,
How
no
you-
bias there.
Now that you have fled, well, actually, you're back in there, aren't you? As of right now, you
Yes, that
returned.
is true.
You've returned. I
Mhm.
guess, sometimes abusive relationships are hard to get out of, so you've gone back to California
Mhm. He likes a vacation
for
in
like
hell.
2 months. Maybe that's
It's
one of the
very
things.
warm,
Yeah.
Yeah, very warm in hell. I'm not surprised.
California's good for vacationing in, not for living in, probably. That kind of thing, right? Isn't that
That
another-
is definitely
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, tell us, Mr. Californian. I mean, I'm speaking from experience too, but what do you think?
Well, it is kind of funny how avocados became synonymous with California. And given the recent developments in California, if you are caught eating avocado, there are people out there who may not speak to you again.
Whoa, it's like the reverse, dude. It's like, oh, you voted for Trump? X'd. You're out of my life. Oh, you voted for that guy? Uh-oh. But now it's the opposite, isn't it?
You eat avocado and we can't speak anymore.
Well, that's how Fox feels.
I mean, I'm just saying that if we had an option to quarantine California, but the downside is we didn't get any avocados anymore, I mean, what are we even weighing this against? I think it's worth it.
Some of you will die, but it's a sacrifice.
I mean, look, I don't even mind avocados that much. Like, they're okay, but, like, for heaven's sake, they're not that important. Good gracious. Y'all practically worship them out there.
Now, is avocado on its own? Because, it's not necessarily, necessarily a California-only food.
I mean, they're from Mexico originally. You just stole them like everything else.
Well,
what goes better with Silicon Valley and microchips? Avocados from Mexico.
No, you gotta wait. You gotta add one more thing to that though. If you're gonna do it that way, Silicon Valley, it's avocado toast.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like that combination is what's really irredeemable to people. They're like, you ate avocado toast. My respect for you just went into the negative. That's how they feel.
But nobody gets on your case for eating guac. So I have this feeling that it's avocado toast that's really the problem here.
You can go to a Roadhouse, Texas type restaurant, and they will give you chunky guac with some chips.
I mean, I'm just saying,
that's socially acceptable.
Oh yeah, sure. Putting guacamole on a corn chip is so different from putting avocado on carbs that have been sliced made of wheat. You're telling me those are similar in any way?
There's a big difference. It's night and day.
Perception-wise, it's all the difference in the world.
Okay, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that because I don't eat guacamole much.
They repackage corn syrup in so many different ways in the supermarket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Coke.
Ketchup.
Oh, gosh. Yes, it really isn't everything.
Check your labels, people. Check your labels.
You just know it was made in America. It's got corn syrup. That's what sets our food apart.
Fair, yeah.
Why does our food taste better? Because literally everything has sugar in it.
That's a question for another day,
I'm just saying, like, look, if we're going to keep avocados around, we got to tone it down a little bit, guys, because, like, we can't worship them. Like, the scene in the freaking Charlie and the Chocolate Factory where they're all dancing around the cocoa bean? I thought that was an avocado pit at first, and he was discovering the jungles of California. Like, that's kind of the behavior that I see from Californians when they get their hands on the avocados. They go for those stalls in Walmart, like the freaking people go for at like the Walmart Black Friday sales, like diving over the cash registers to get to them as soon as the truck shows up to unload. They're literally barging through the back door, bulldozing over those poor blue vests, trying to get into the truck to haul them out.
In order for people to, because there's people who are very proud to live in not a flyover state, as some people put it, and so avocados are kind of like, it's that token that you have with you. Your
token social status.
Look, guys. Yeah,
some people wear watches. Some people hold avocado toast.
Avocado toast. We're not the same.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of
avocado Rolex.
Especially if you buy it from a restaurant, a local restaurant for $11 these days.
Oh my gosh, is that how much they are over there?
I remember it being terrible before all the inflation hit, so I imagine it's at least $11 these days.
Oh my gosh, for an avocado, it really is a social status at that point.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like
I can afford avocado. What have you ever done?
It's like that. It's like a sports car. You've got regular cars for normal people, and then you've got like the Bugatti and.
Do people care about the sound? Like the exact crunch of the toast is makes all the difference, like the engine of the sports car.
I can tell you that it's going to pretty much always be on sourdough.
Oh,
so
really?
I think yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't know that.
Yep.
Why sourdough?
It's a California thing.
I thought those sourdoughs from up north. You have it with chowder and stuff. What are you talking about,
dude? What do you think the California?
San Francisco.
California roll is
an abomination.
Yeah, exactly.
And some American nonsense that cheaply imitate something
So
that
you've
roughly
answered your
resembles
question.
something?
You've answered your question for why people put avocado on sourdough.
Oh,
you go.
okay.
It's just a California convection. It's
Cultural
There
appropriation.
you go.
I'm a northerner. You stole that from us.
I
Give
feel
it
like
back.
We've just
Give me back
we've
my
probably
sourdough.
offended a number of people.
You've
talking
offended
about this.
me. I'm Norwegian. I'm practically like from Minnesota, the Minnesota of the West. We're the ones that make that sourdough.
There you go again, Fox.
Mhm.
Getting under people's skin,
Getting
offending
ditched.
people.
Ditch the avocado, get rid of the fruit, and eat chowder like a real man with your sourdough.
And that's the podcast.
All right, you fruits and chowder heads alike. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We will be back in 1 week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Thank you for joining us on the SoapFox.